Yes, but I wanted to, where you had talked about some of the equipment that you've bought, and some of these things that you've bought, and you said that you told us earlier that most of the radios in this room were in a non-functioning stage when you got them. A little later on, we can go in and see where your little workshop is. But you know that, I mean, it's pretty important that you were able, because of your technical expertise, to repair these radios, make them functional, make them fully functional, and it's great that you didn't pay retail. All right.
Thank you very much. One more thing?
Sure.
If I may. These are what they call QSL cards. They're just cards that acknowledge QSOs that you have from different parts of the world.
Contacts. Yeah.
Contacts.
Yeah, right.
So if you speak to somebody, if Pi was in England and I spoke to him and asked for a QSL card, just to confirm the conversation we had at a particular time, he would send cards like this. And I just got these in from, they call it Bureau, which is a clearinghouse for QSL cards. These are all contacts I've made within the last year or so. There's probably about 50, 60 countries represented in this handful right here. So as you can see, it's pretty easy. It's a lot of fun to get yourself educated, talking to people from all over the world, and then having something to show for it.
Now, this Bureau, this to me would seem as though if I had to spend, well, I'm sending this overseas to someone that's in Greece, I'm going to have to spend almost $1 for postage to send it to him. He's going to have to spend at least $1 to send that one card to me if he was sending it directly. But yet, when you get a big stack of cards like this, it goes through a clearinghouse bureau that you talk about.
Absolutely.
And so all of these, this probably had $2, maybe a total of $2 worth of postage involved to get all of those cards to you. So it's a pretty interesting little side thing that we do with ham radio as far as these QSL cards.
Absolutely. And there's several.
Do you have one of your QSL cards?
You know, I do. I just went to pick it up, and if I can find it here. Here it is. This is a card that I send out. I don't know if you can see it or not. Okay. Has my call sign on it, K1NOK, and it shows the Scituate Lighthouse here on the right. And it's just a picture that I've taken of a local area, just like some of these other cards I get in. They will show pictures of, in this case, it's another lighthouse, but it can be anything. It shows pictures of the local area that the hams live in. It may be of their home, their antennas, their family, their dog, and so forth. And this is exactly the way it looks. It just says K1NOK, Scituate, Massachusetts. And when people get this, they can say, pretty nice place.
Now, you happen to have this QSL card here. I find that kind of interesting because you and I both spent a weekend out there.
That's correct.
At Boston Light.
Yeah,
and that was a tremendous experience. Well, so we're going to do a show, I think, in the future about some of the lighthouse operations that, well, we've been involved in a few of them, but that fellow that gave you this plaque, Whitey Doherty, maybe we can get a little...
Absolutely.
He has some presentations that he's done about lighthouses.
By the way, I'm not sure if a lot of viewers understand, but that was the last manned lighthouse in the United States.
That's right.
And I understand now it's finally gone automatic. Is that true?
Well, there's still a keeper out there.
Okay.
Yes,
well, it's still the last one in the U.S.
Right.
for the keeper.
Right.
So.
All right. Now, you with some of your other equipment that you have here, I see more of this Collins. And now Collins is one of the. Are there any other American manufacturers now of radio equipment? Because Collins used to be manufactured for the military, and they're not in business anymore.
Exactly. And what happened after Collins, manufacturing in the United States was pretty much given up to the Japanese. They started making radios, and manufacturers in the U.S. have become less and less. And I'm happy to say that's really changed, and now we have a lot more manufacturers of ham radio equipment in the United States. We have Tentec and Lectec and a lot of different companies.
Well, your antenna, that antenna that we were looking at up there, that's an American manufacturer, Stepper? Right?
That's an interesting antenna, and not to get into too many details about it, but that's a really unique antenna. A lot of antennas are made in Germany and other parts of the world, but that's a good old American invention. That antenna is all you have to do if you want to work a particular frequency. You just punch a button, and the elements will go to that and resonate on that particular frequency, where a lot of other antennas are just compromises and won't do that. So again, American ingenuity coming back.
Now, we were outside, and if you were changing the frequency on that antenna, we wouldn't see any change in that antenna. The antenna physically looked the same, but it's something inside those
That's
tubes?
correct. There's beryllium copper tubes. They look like tape measures together. And when you just punch a button for the frequency you want, in fact, this is computer controlled too. You just change the frequency on the internet, changes the changes the radio to the particular frequency, and tunes the antenna up on the roof. All done, all automatically. And inside, those are fiberglass elements, and inside that there are metal tapes that absolutely go in and out to the resonant frequency that you'll be transmitting on.
I remember when that concept was first presented 7 or 8 years ago when that manufacturer started, and it seemed so. A lot of us were pretty doubtful that would work. We said, well, it would be all right, but what if you have winter conditions or whatever? It works great. They've taken these things down to Antarctica, all extremes, and it works a great design. Well, another manufacturer that you mentioned was Elecraft, and that's a company out in, I believe, Washington State, and they've also they can't seem to fill their orders fast enough.
They can't. It's
such a
absolutely
great product, American product.
American product, and it's now the best rated as #1 radio made for ham radio use, and it's made in America.
That's a kit.
And it's a kit.
Yeah.
And it's a little easier to put together because there's not a lot of soldering required. So if you like building, that's something certainly to consider. One last award that I'll show you up here is by the ARRL. It's just to my left here. And that is an award that you can get if you work every single country in the world. You get a #1 award. And then you have to keep it up because 2 or 3 weeks from now there may be a new country that's coming up for whatever reason, like when Czechoslovakia broke up. There's several countries from that. And it's a lot of fun. I've got in through contesting where you compete with other hams to get more points than other hams. The way this was born was from Russia. Years ago, the Russian hams just couldn't get on the air. They couldn't talk to anybody outside of the Soviet Union. When I was a kid in high school, it would be hard to get a contact with them, although you could hear them all the time. But back then, sports was a big deal. So one of the hams in Russia decided, hey, let's make this radio activity a sport. And they went to the government and said, hey, we're going to do some competition. Can we do this? And the government said, well, yeah, if you win. And they said, oh, we can win this. And so it became radio sport, and it allowed them to get involved with contesting, and that's really how you could now talk to people in Russia. No problem today, obviously, but back in 1950s and 60s, very, very hard to do. But now we can do it.
When were you first licensed?
Oh, I was licensed in 1957.
57.
I was just started high school back then.
Now, I seem to recall, I've been around a little bit, maybe 5 years after that is when I got my license. But we talk about propagation with we're looking at wintertime and things like that, but the sun goes through a whole series of changes every 11 years. It's a cycle, a solar cycle. So I think, if memory serves me correct, you came into things at a pretty good time when the solar cycle was just on its upswing.
Yeah. I remember one day, there was a contest going on. I'll tell you how good things were. And everybody tries to get this one particular award in ham radio. It's called DXCC. It means DX Century Club. If you work 100 countries, you can send it in. And there would be people trying for years to collect 100 countries. And I remember one contest I got up, it was on 10-meter band, higher frequency. And I got up, I started working different countries at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and by 2 in the afternoon I had worked 123 different countries. And I got the whole award in like 6, 7 hours. That's how good, anybody could have done it though, but that's how good conditions were back in 1959 and so forth.
That's 11-year cycle that I mentioned.
Right.
That's something that we're now almost at the minimum of, and it's now on the upswing. Hams are kind of crazy. I mean, we know a lot about geography. We know something about the politics of the world that causes these things to become countries. But we also know a bit about what's going on with the sun on a daily basis.
Correct.
We will monitor things like how many sunspots there are today, or what we call solar flux index and things like that. And other people that are not involved with ham radio, they go, what is that? But
these are very important factors to an astronaut, because if you get a solar flare and you're in a spaceship, you've got a real problem. You've got to have somewhere to go in the middle of that spaceship. For example, a Mars landing, this is a lot of consideration. But essentially what Pi's saying right now, we're in the solar, we're in the bottom of the sunspot cycle, which means the higher frequencies really don't have good propagation because there's very few sunspots. Every day now you look around, they're finding an extra sunspot, so we're starting up. It's an 11-year cycle, and as we get more to the top, the more cycles, the more solar flares, the more ionization, the better propagation becomes, making it real easy for us to talk to the rest of the world.